Hey, look what the wind blew in! American monkeys by the tower! Beneath the Eiffel Tower, a French gang targets a black couple on vacation in Paris, circling them like predators. Adrien Vauquelin, leader of Les Loups Blancs, smirks as his men brandish knives, eager to stage another act of racist humiliation. To them, Marcus Hale is just another foreign tourist, too polite to fight back, and his wife, Lena, just another frightened woman clutching his arm. What they don't know is that Marcus is Special Forces, trained for moments exactly like this. When the gang strikes, Paris witnesses what happens when hate meets discipline, and justice fights back. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Champ de Mars as Marcus and Lena walked together, their fingers intertwined. The Eiffel Tower loomed above them, its iron latticework catching the golden light. Tourists milled about, taking selfies and spreading picnic blankets on the grass. "Je voudrais," Marcus started, then stumbled over the French words. Lena squeezed his hand and laughed softly. "Your accent is still terrible after all these years." "That's why I married a smart woman," he replied with a gentle smile. "You can do the talking." They stopped to take photos, Lena positioning Marcus just right, so the tower framed him perfectly. The peaceful moment shattered when angry voices cut through the ambient chatter of the crowd. A group of young white men in matching white tank tops had surrounded a black street performer. Their matching outfits weren't a coincidence. This was Les Loups Blancs, the White Wolves. Marcus noticed them first, his body tensing slightly as he watched them shove the performer. "Marcus," Lena whispered, gripping his arm. "Let's just walk away." But the gang had already spotted them. One of them nudged their leader, Adrien Vauquelin, and pointed. Adrien's handsome face twisted into an ugly smirk as he turned away from the performer and focused on the couple. "Look what we have here," Adrien called out in accented English. "More American tourists who think they own Paris." His followers laughed, spreading out to block potential escape routes. Several pulled out phones, pointing their cameras at Marcus and Lena. "Your English is as bad as my French," Marcus replied evenly, though Lena could feel the tension in his muscles. Adrien's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, his gang moving with him. "We don't want your kind here," he spat, dropping any pretense of civility. The racial slurs that followed made Lena flinch. Tourists nearby began to stare. Some pulled out their phones to record, but none stepped forward to help. Adrien noticed the attention and played to his audience, spreading his arms wide. "Let's show them how Paris welcomes Americans," he announced. His followers whooped and closed ranks, forming a tight circle around Marcus and Lena. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between the gang and his wife. His movements were measured, controlled, the calm before a storm. Lena recognized the shift in his posture, the way his weight settled onto the balls of his feet. 20 years of Special Forces training hummed beneath his surface. One of the gang members lunged forward, a knife glinting in his hand. Marcus moved with frightening efficiency. He redirected the blade with a sharp movement, struck the attacker's wrist, and used the man's own momentum to throw him off balance. The knife clattered to the ground. Two more rushed him from different angles. Marcus grabbed a nearby trash can lid, using it to deflect one attacker while simultaneously catching the other's arm. He turned their force against them, sending both sprawling. "Help!" Lena screamed, noticing a young child wandering too close to the violence. She rushed forward, pulling the little girl behind her and away from the fight. Marcus continued to move with deadly precision, each movement purposeful and restrained. He wasn't fighting to hurt. He was fighting to control, to contain. Still, the gang's numbers threatened to overwhelm him as more closed in. The sharp wail of police sirens cut through the chaos. Capitaine Roxane Moreau, appeared with two officers, their uniforms a blur of dark blue as they charged into the fray. The gang scattered like cockroaches in sudden light, but Moreau moved faster than they expected. She caught Adrian before he could slip away, twisting his arms behind his back. Marcus stood his ground, chest heaving slightly. A bruise was forming on his cheekbone, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. Lena ran to him, her hands shaking as she checked him for injuries. Adrian struggled against Moreau's grip as she secured the handcuffs. His carefully maintained facade had cracked, revealing the hatred beneath. "This isn't over," he snarled, trying to maintain some semblance of control even in defeat. Marcus met his gaze steadily. "No," he replied, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet space. "It's just begun." The police lights painted the scene in alternating flashes of blue, reflecting off the Eiffel Tower that stood witness above them. Tourists murmured and pointed, their phones still recording. The setting sun had painted the sky in deep oranges and purples, a beautiful backdrop to the ugly scene below. Moreau pushed Adrian toward her patrol car, reading him his rights in rapid French. The other officers began taking statements from witnesses, many of whom now stepped forward, phones extended with their recorded evidence. The police escort dropped Marcus and Lena off at their hotel, a charming boutique property near the Latin Quarter. Inside their room, Lena's hands trembled as she wet a washcloth in the bathroom sink. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, his usual stoic demeanor firmly in place despite the events of the afternoon. "Let me see your sleeve," Lena said, her voice unsteady. A streak of dried blood marked the cuff of his light blue shirt. "It's not mine," Marcus assured her, but he held still as she dabbed at the stain. Her medical training from her museum preservation work showed in her careful movements. "I know it's not yours," she replied. "That's what worries me. You could have really hurt them." Marcus caught her hand, stilling its nervous motion. "I didn't. That's what matters. It's fine. It's over." Lena met his eyes, seeing the quiet strength there that had first drawn her to him. After 20 years of marriage, she could read the subtle signs of tension around his mouth, the way his shoulders remained squared even in their private space. A knock at the door made them both start. Capitaine Moreau stood in the hallway, her professional demeanor softened slightly by genuine concern. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said in careful English. "I need your statements while the details are fresh." They invited her in. The captain pulled out a small recorder and notepad, settling into the room's single armchair, while Marcus and Lena sat together on the bed. "Please, tell me everything you remember," Moreau prompted. "Even small details could be important." Lena described the initial confrontation, her historian's eye for detail, providing a clear timeline. Marcus added his observations about the gang's coordinated movements, their practiced intimidation tactics. "They've done this before," he concluded. "This wasn't random." Moreau nodded, making notes. "We've had incidents, but witnesses often withdraw their complaints. Evidence disappears." Her tone suggested this wasn't accidental. When they finished, Moreau handed them her card. "Email me any videos you took, or ones you see posted online. I'll make sure they go directly to the prosecutor's office." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Some people in Paris, they have influence. But justice should be blind." After she left, Marcus ordered a bottle of wine from room service. They needed to decompress, to process. Lena pulled out her journal, a habit from her academic days that helped her organize her thoughts. "History repeats when it's allowed to," she wrote, speaking the words aloud. "We document to prevent that repetition." Marcus poured the wine, handed her a glass. "To documentation," he said with a slight smile. The peaceful moment shattered when both their phones buzzed simultaneously. A notification from a local news site. "Tourist altercation at Eiffel Tower. Local businessman claims self-defense." Lena clicked the link. Adrian Vauclain's polished face filled the screen. He'd posted a video, already viral, showing a carefully edited version of the confrontation. The footage started mid-fight, making Marcus's defensive moves appear unprovoked and aggressive. "Tourist thugs attack locals," the caption read in French and English. "American violence threatens Paris streets." "They flipped the story," Lena whispered, her voice tight with disbelief and anger. She scrolled through the comments, a flood of xenophobic rhetoric, calls for arrests, demands for tourist restrictions. Marcus said nothing, but his jaw clenched. He'd seen this before in war zones, how quickly truth could be twisted, how easily people accepted the version that confirmed their prejudices. Lena opened her laptop with determined movements. "We have the full footage. We have witnesses." She began uploading their videos to an email for Moreau, adding timestamps and notes. Marcus paced the small room, his military training making him hyper-aware of their vulnerability. The street lamp outside cast strange shadows through the gauzy curtains. "We should move to a different hotel," he suggested, but Lena shook her head. "Running looks like guilt," she said. "We document. We stand our ground. We—" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes fixed on the window. A shadow had passed across it. A human shape, there and gone too quickly. Marcus moved to the window in 2 silent strides, scanning the street below. A figure in a white tank top stood under a streetlight, phone raised toward their window. When he saw Marcus watching, he lowered the phone but didn't move. It was a message. They were being watched. Lena's fingers flew across the keyboard, attaching the last of their evidence to the email for Moreau. Marcus drew the curtains fully closed, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Let them watch. Let them think they had the upper hand. The room felt smaller now, the comfortable boutique charm replaced by a sense of siege. But neither Marcus nor Lena suggested leaving. They had faced worse challenges in their careers, he in war zones, she in confronting historical injustices. They wouldn't be driven away by thugs with cameras and cropped videos. The wine sat forgotten on the small table as Lena typed, and Marcus maintained his quiet vigil. Outside, Paris continued its evening bustle, unaware of the battle of narratives unfolding in one of its countless hotel rooms. The morning sun painted Paris in deceptive normalcy as Marcus and Lena made their way to the police precinct. Café terraces buzzed with tourists sipping espresso, while bakers arranged golden croissants in windows. The smell of fresh bread and coffee drifted through the air, a stark contrast to the tension in their steps. "It feels strange," Lena said, gripping Marcus's hand. "Everyone just going about their day like nothing happened." Marcus squeezed back. "People see what they want to see." The precinct was a stern limestone building, its French flag hanging limp in the still morning air. Capitaine Moreau met them at the entrance, her professional demeanor tinged with something that looked like concern. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading them through security. "We'll take your statements separately. Standard procedure." The interview room was small but clean, with a single window letting in strips of sunlight through Venetian blinds. Lena went first, Marcus waiting outside on a hard plastic chair. He watched officers move through their morning routines, noting their movements, their attitudes, the way some avoided eye contact. When it was his turn, Marcus sat straight-backed in the metal chair, answering Moreau's questions with military precision. Yes, he saw the knife first. No, he used only necessary force. Each response measured, careful. The door opened without warning. A man in an expensive suit entered, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile practiced and cold. Commissaire Jules Rimbaud carried himself like someone used to being obeyed. "Ah, our American visitors," he said in flawless English, picking up the case file. His eyes scanned the pages with exaggerated interest. Monsieur Hale. Special Forces, yes? 20 years service? Marcus kept his face neutral. Yes, sir. So, when you attacked these young men, you were using combat training? Rambo's smile didn't reach his eyes. Military techniques against civilian Parisians? I defended myself and my wife from armed attackers, Marcus replied evenly. Moreau shifted in her chair. Commissaire, the witness statements clearly show— Thank you, Capitaine, Rambo cut her off. I believe we have new evidence to consider. An officer entered with a tablet, showing the edited video clip. Rambo watched it with theatrical concern. Very disturbing. The violence seems excessive. That video is edited, Lena protested from the doorway where she'd been waiting. We have the full footage. On your phones? Rambo raised an eyebrow. Which will need to be temporarily confiscated as evidence, of course. Standard procedure. 2 officers appeared behind Lena. The choreography was too perfect to be coincidental. Marcus recognized an ambush when he saw one. Marcus Hale, Rambo announced formally, you are under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon. Your combat training classifies your hands as lethal instruments under French law. What? Lena pushed into the room. This is absurd. He saved me. He saved that street performer. Marcus stood slowly, hands visible. Lena, it's okay. His voice was calm, but his eyes screened the room, counting exits, assessing threats. Old habits. Your phones and cameras, please, an officer demanded. All electronic devices. Lena clutched her phone. Our evidence is on here. The real video will be carefully preserved, Rambo assured her with that empty smile. We are very thorough. Marcus caught Moreau's eye as they took his phone. The captain's face was carefully blank, but her fingers tapped silently against her leg, a rhythm he recognized as Morse code. Wait. They cuffed him with mechanical efficiency. Lena's voice rose in anger and fear. This is harassment. I'm calling the embassy. Of course, Rambo said smoothly. As soon as we process your devices, you can make all the calls you wish. Marcus kept his breathing steady as they led him toward the holding cells. He heard Lena's protests fade behind him, heard her demand to know where they were taking him. The corridor stretched long and institutional, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Rambo stepped close to one of the escorting officers, his whisper meant to be heard. Make sure the American learns French hospitality. Marcus's face remained impassive, but his mind raced through scenarios, contingencies, angles of approach. Not for escape, he wouldn't give them that satisfaction, but for endurance, for justice. He'd been in worse places, faced worse odds. The cell door clanged shut with deliberate finality. Through the small window, he could see Rambo's satisfied smirk as the commissaire turned away, no doubt heading back to deal with Lena. Marcus sat on the narrow bunk, back straight, hands relaxed on his knees. He looked like a man at peace. But beneath that calm exterior, his tactical mind was already mapping the battlefield. Not of violence, but of truth. They'd made one crucial mistake. They thought they were caging a soldier. They hadn't realized they were trapping themselves with a strategist. Through the cell window, he could see a slice of Parisian sky, blue and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Lena would be planning, documenting, refusing to be silenced. And Moreau's tapped message played in his mind. Wait. Sometimes, he knew, victory came not from fighting, but from letting the enemy think they'd won. The concrete cell smelled of bleach and despair. Marcus sat perfectly still on the thin mattress, his back straight against the wall, eyes closed but mind alert. He counted the rhythmic rattles from the ventilation system overhead. 1, 2, 3, a meditation in monotony that kept his thoughts sharp. A young guard passed by, radio crackling at his hip. "Hey, terroriste noir," he sneered through the bars. "Comfortable?" Marcus didn't flinch, didn't open his eyes. The guard's footsteps faded down the corridor, replaced by the steady count of vent rattles. 4, 5, 6. His thoughts drifted to Afghanistan, to lessons learned in combat that most wouldn't understand. How silence could be deadlier than any weapon. How patience could break an enemy faster than force. Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale had taught his unit that the quiet ones were always the most dangerous, not because they planned violence, but because they planned. 7, 8, 9. The cell was 8 feet by 10 feet. One window, barred, facing east. Single door with 2 hinges, standard lock. Camera in the corner with a red light that blinked every 4 seconds. He had mapped every detail without seeming to look, just as he'd been trained. Down the hall, voices echoed. "L'Américaine est revenue." The American woman is back. Lena. His jaw tightened slightly, but his breathing remained steady. 10, 11, 12. In the precinct lobby, Lena stood at the front desk, her historian's composure cracking under frustration. "I demand to speak with someone from the U.S. Embassy. It's my right as an American citizen." The desk sergeant barely looked up from his computer. "The embassy has been notified. They will contact you when—" "When what?" Lena's voice rose. "When you've finished destroying our evidence? When you've buried the truth about what really happened?" Other officers glanced over, then quickly away. Lena pulled out her phone to record, but a uniformed woman stepped forward. "No cameras in the precinct, madame." "Of course not," Lena said bitterly. "Can't have proof of what happens here, can we?" She stepped outside to call Capitaine Moreau, who answered on the second ring. "Dr. Hale, I'm so sorry. This wasn't my order. Rambeau went over my head." "They're going to hurt him," Lena said, her voice tight with fear and rage. "Your husband is stronger than they know," Moreau replied carefully. "Trust that I'm working on this. Just keep everything you do visible. Public." Back in his cell, Marcus had shifted to push-ups. The mechanical rhythm helped focus his mind. 1 set for each deployment. Iraq, Syria, Somalia, Afghanistan. Places where he'd learned that victory often meant outlasting, not outfighting. The afternoon light slanted through his window when the janitor came to mop. An older man with kind eyes who worked with careful, deliberate movements. As he passed Marcus's cell, a small piece of paper fluttered from his pocket. Marcus waited until the janitor was gone before retrieving it. The note was simple. "Capitaine says keep faith. Watch camera 14. He glanced at the camera in his cell. Number 12. 14 would be in the hallway then, covering the main corridor. He allowed himself a small smile. Moreau was clever. That evening, while Marcus counted his 107th vent rattle, Lena sat in their hotel room surrounded by printouts, notes, and her laptop. She'd spent hours documenting everything, building a timeline of events, cross-referencing witness accounts. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown account. "You want proof? Meet me at Café Marianne tomorrow. Don't bring cops." Her finger hovered over the delete button, but then another message appeared. "I was there. Under the masks. I know what really happened." Lena's heart raced as a third message came through. "I can't sleep since that day. My sister saw the video and asked why I hurt people. I need to make it right." The sender's name appeared. Etienne Marchal. She recognized it immediately. One of the masked attackers, barely more than a boy. His face had slipped free during the fight, showing eyes wide with fear before he'd pulled the mask back up. In his cell, Marcus completed another set of push-ups. 13 sets now. The night guard passed, younger than the morning shift, nervous. No slurs from this one. Just quick glances and quicker steps. Marcus settled back on his bunk. Eyes closed, but mind racing. He could feel the pieces moving, the invisible currents of justice finding their way through the cracks in corruption's walls. Lena would be working, he knew. Documenting? Building their case. And Moreau. She was positioning something with that camera 14. The vent rattled again. 108. 109. Each count a reminder that patience was its own weapon. That truth, like water, would find its way through any barrier if you gave it time. Somewhere in Paris, a young man named Etienne stared at his phone, fingers trembling as he waited for Lena's response. And in her hotel room, Lena studied his messages, weighing risk against necessity, fear against hope. The night deepened. Marcus counted rattles. Lena gathered evidence. Etienne waited for an answer. And above them all, the Eiffel Tower's lights swept across a city where justice and injustice played their eternal game of cat and mouse through darkened streets and quiet cells. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows of Café Marianne as Lena sat at a corner table, her back to the wall. She'd chosen this spot carefully. Clear view of both entrances, close to the kitchen exit. Marcus would have approved. Her hands wrapped around a cooling cup of coffee, more for comfort than caffeine. Every time the door chimed, she tensed. Young men in hoodies weren't uncommon in Paris, but she studied each one, searching for those haunted eyes she'd glimpsed beneath a mask during the attack. A waitress approached. "Another coffee, madame?" "Non, merci," Lena replied, checking her phone again. No new messages from Etienne since his morning confirmation. The door chimed. A slight figure in a gray hoodie entered, head down, shoulders hunched. He paused just inside, scanning the room with quick, nervous movements. When his gaze met Lena's, she saw recognition flash across his face. And fear. Etienne approached her table like a spooked deer, ready to bolt at any sudden movement. Up close, he looked even younger than she'd expected. Barely out of childhood, with acne-marked cheeks and bitten fingernails. "Sit," she said softly in French. "Would you like something to drink?" He shook his head, perching on the edge of his chair. His eyes darted constantly to the windows, the door, the other customers. "I shouldn't be here," he mumbled. "If Adrienne finds out." "But you are here," Lena said, keeping her voice gentle but firm. "That takes courage." Etienne's laugh was bitter. "Courage? I held the phone while they—" He swallowed hard. "While we hurt people, filmed it, posted it, called it defending France." "Tell me how it started," Lena prompted, sliding her phone onto the table, recording app open. Etienne stared at it for a long moment before nodding slightly. "I was 16 when Adrian first messaged me, on social media. He said—" His voice cracked. "He said I could be part of something important. That France needed strong young men to protect her culture." In his cell, Marcus lay on his bunk, appearing to rest. The small mirror shard he'd worked loose from the bathroom fixture caught afternoon light from his window. With precise, almost imperceptible movements, he angled it toward camera 14 in the corridor. 3 short flashes. Pause. Too long. Pause. 3 short again. An old signal pattern, modified for this new purpose. If Moreau had someone watching that feed, they'd understand. Back at the cafe, Etienne's words tumbled out faster now, as if confessing brought its own momentum. At first it was just meetings, talks about French pride, about protecting our neighborhoods. Then came the social media campaigns, the videos. He pulled his sleeves over his hands, a childlike gesture. Adrian said we needed to show people the truth about immigrants, about people like you. But it was all lies. We'd provoke them, edit the footage, make them look violent, like you did with my husband, Lena said quietly. Etienne flinched. "I didn't know he was military. None of us did. We thought—" He trailed off, ashamed. It doesn't matter what we thought. We were wrong. All of it was wrong. His hand disappeared into his hoodie pocket, emerging with a small USB drive. He placed it carefully on the table between them, like it might explode. Everything's here. Original footage, group chats, financial records. Adrian pays people to edit the videos, pays police to look away. His voice dropped to a whisper. Some nights, after the clubs close, they do worse things. Much worse. Lena reached for the drive, but Etienne's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. His eyes were wide with panic. My sister, he said. Promise you'll help her. She's 14. If Adrian finds out I talked. He released Lena's wrist, leaving behind white pressure marks. He knows where she goes to school. What's her name? Marie. She's all I have left since Maman died. Lena met his frightened gaze steadily. I promise, Etienne. We'll protect her. He nodded once, standing abruptly. I have to go. Don't try to contact me again. I'll find a way to reach you if it's safe. In his cell, Marcus continued his patient signaling. Flash, flash, flash. Pause. Flash, flash. The afternoon light was perfect now, catching the mirror shard just right. He'd been at it for hours, knowing that persistence mattered more than speed. Etienne slipped out through the cafe's kitchen exit, hunching deeper into his hoodie. Lena watched him go, the USB drive heavy in her hand. Outside, a sleek black car idled in the alley, its tinted windows reflecting the setting sun. But Lena had already turned away, focused on securing the drive in her purse, on planning her next move. She left money for her coffee, gathering her things with deliberate calm. The promise she'd made to Etienne weighed on her. Another life now tied to their fight for justice. The stakes kept rising, but so did their ammunition against Adrian's carefully constructed web of lies. The hotel corridor felt endless as Lena rushed toward their room, her heart pounding. Capitaine Moreau walked beside her, keys jingling in her hand. Remember, Moreau warned, this is temporary. He cannot leave the hotel. She unlocked the door. One mistake, and Rambaud will have him back in that cell. Marcus stood by the window, silhouetted against the Paris skyline. He turned at their entrance, and Lena saw the shadows under his eyes, the new tension in his jaw. But he was here. He was safe. She crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped her arms around him. His embrace was gentle, careful. She felt the stiffness in his shoulders, evidence of rough handling in the cell. I'm okay, he murmured into her hair. I'm right here. Moreau cleared her throat softly. Your passport is in police custody, Monsieur Hale. You'll sign these papers agreeing to remain in the hotel until your hearing. She placed a stack of documents on the desk. And officially, I'm required to tell you not to interfere with an ongoing investigation. Her slight emphasis on officially didn't go unnoticed. Marcus signed where indicated, his movements measured and calm. Unofficially, Moreau continued, even quieter, you didn't win yet. You just bought time. She glanced at the security camera in the hallway. Use it wisely. After she left, Lena pulled the USB drive from her purse. Etienne gave us everything, Marcus, all their original footage. They set up Lena's laptop on the small hotel desk, shoulders touching as they leaned in to watch. The first video showed Adrian addressing his followers in a dimly lit basement. His charisma was obvious, gesturing passionately, drawing his audience in with practiced charm. France bleeds while politicians talk, he declared. We are the medicine. File after file revealed the gang's methods. They'd scout tourist areas, targeting people of color, or those speaking foreign languages. Each attack was carefully filmed, then edited to make the victims appear aggressive. Some clips showed Adrian directing reshoots, demanding more dramatic angles. Stop, Marcus said after an hour, rubbing his eyes. We need to organize this systematically. Lena nodded, already creating folders on her desktop. Attacks, financial records, communications. Her historian's training took over, cataloging evidence with precise attention to detail. The financial records were encrypted, but patterns emerged. Regular payments to PR consultants who matched known video editors, security companies that employed off-duty police, and one recurring name caught their attention. RJM Consulting. Jules Rimbaud, Lena breathed. The commissaire. Marcus studied the numbers. Monthly payments. Large ones. They worked through the night, preparing files for Camille Delatour, a journalist Lena had worked with before. Someone who wouldn't sensationalize, who would understand the importance of timing and verification. We need to be careful, Marcus said, watching Lena draft their press statement. One wrong move. I know. Lena's fingers paused over the keyboard. But we can't let them bury this. Not again. The statement took shape slowly. No accusations, just facts. Dates, times, verifiable incidents. A pattern of organized harassment, documented meticulously. Around 3 a.m., Marcus ordered room service coffee. They sat on the bed with their cups, surrounded by notes and timeline drafts. What did they do to you in there? Lena finally asked, touching his bruised wrist. Nothing I haven't handled before. His smile was tired, but genuine. I had good training in patience. Dawn began to pale the sky outside their window. They'd separated the evidence into 3 secure uploads. One for Camille, one for Moreau, one for their lawyer. The laptop hummed quietly, progress bars creeping forward. Sleep, Marcus said, guiding Lena to lie down. I'll watch the uploads. Wake me when they're done? She was already drifting, exhaustion finally winning. Promise. The city was starting to stir below their window. Delivery trucks, early commuters, the distant rumble of the metro. But up in their room, Lena slept while Marcus kept vigil, watching files transform into armor against injustice, 1 percentage point at a time. The laptop's blue light painted shadows on the wall. Progress bar, 67%. Then, 68%. Marcus settled deeper into his chair, arms crossed, guardian and prisoner both. He'd learned in the service that waiting was its own kind of battle. This time, the enemy wasn't hiding in desert shadows, but in edited videos and coded payments. Lena murmured in her sleep, and he watched her face smooth back into peace. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The sun rose higher over Paris, painting the room in soft gold, but the laptop light stayed steady, counting up toward completion. The morning sun sparkled on the Seine as Lena adjusted her laptop screen. She sat at a small cafe table, the Eiffel Tower rising behind her like an iron guardian. Camille Delatour, sharp-eyed and professional in her fitted blazer, nodded from the other half of the split screen. Are you ready? Camille asked, shuffling papers. Once we start, there's no going back. Lena touched the USB drive in her pocket like a talisman. Marcus stood nearby, scanning the scattered cafe crowds with practiced ease. They'd chosen this spot carefully, public enough to be safe, busy enough to blend in. I'm ready, Lena said. Her voice was steady, her hands still. The live stream began simply, Good morning, Paris. I'm Camille Delatour, and with me is Dr. Lena Hale, an American historian who experienced something disturbing near our beloved tower. Lena spoke clearly, her academic training showing in how she laid out the facts. Dates, times, locations. She shared carefully selected clips. Not everything, just enough to establish the pattern. Comments began flooding in immediately. Notice the original timestamp here, she pointed out, as a video played showing Adrian's men surrounding another tourist couple weeks before the Hales. And here's how it appeared online afterward. The evidence was damning. Side-by-side comparisons showed how the gang edited their videos, turning victims into aggressors. Witness statements scrolled past, each verified by Camille's team. "This isn't an isolated incident," Lena explained. "This is an organized campaign of intimidation, documented and monetized." Viewer numbers climbed. Share buttons lit up like fireworks. Within an hour, the stream had gone viral across French social media. Marcus touched her shoulder, signaling. 3 young men in white tank tops had appeared at the cafe's edge. They ordered nothing, just watched. His hand stayed on her shoulder, a quiet warning. Then Adrian's response hit the internet like a thunderclap. His face filled screens across Paris, handsome and outraged. "Black propaganda," he declared, playing the wounded patriot. "These foreigners come here, attack our people, then cry victim when we defend ourselves." The comment section exploded. Racial slurs mixed with French nationalism. Trolls posted edited clips of Marcus fighting back, labeled "American Violence in Paris." Lena kept her composure, but her knuckles whitened around her coffee cup. "Notice how he doesn't address the evidence," she said to Camille. "Only attacks the messenger." Her phone buzzed. "Capitaine Moreau. Be careful. The wolves are cornered. Most dangerous time." Marcus moved closer, his military training evident in how he positioned himself. Throughout the morning, he'd been teaching Lena small things: how to spot surveillance, how to move through crowds safely, how to always know your exits. "Watch people's hands," he'd explained earlier. "Hands hurt you, not faces, and trust your gut. Fear exists for a reason." Now he scanned the growing cafe crowd with practiced ease. "Time to move," he murmured. The 3 young men had been joined by others, all wearing white tanks, despite the morning chill. They packed up smoothly, Camille promising to continue the coverage. As they walked, Marcus guided Lena with subtle touches. 4 o'clock, he'd whisper. "Check your 6. Wide angle now." Her phone lit up again. "Etienne, they know about me. My sister's scared. I'm leaving town tonight." Lena typed quickly. "Wait for Moreau." "She'll help." But an hour later, Moreau called. Etienne never showed at the safe house. His sister hadn't heard from him. His phone was dead. They were back in their hotel room when the video appeared. The quality was poor, but Etienne's face was clear enough. Bloody. Terrified. Someone held his head up by the hair. "Tell them," Adrian's voice commanded off-screen. "Tell them the truth." I lied," Etienne stammered. "The Americans paid me to say things, to give them fake videos. I'm sorry, Adrian. I'm so sorry." The camera panned to show the USB drive being crushed under a boot. Marcus's fist hit the wall before Lena could stop him. The impact left a dent in the plaster, his knuckles raw and red. "He's just a kid," he growled. "Just a damn kid." Lena touched his bleeding hand gently. Outside, Paris continued its morning routine. Tourists laughing, vendors calling, the Seine flowing eternal beneath it all. But in their room, the air felt thick with coming violence. "They'll kill him," Marcus said quietly. "No." Lena's voice was iron. "They won't. We have copies of everything. And now we have this too." She held up her phone, already recording the forced confession video. "One more piece of proof." She started typing again, her fingers flying over the keys. To Moreau, to Camille, to every contact they'd made. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning to burn. The days melted together in their hotel room like watercolors in rain. Lena's laptop hummed constantly, transferring files to secure servers Moreau had arranged. Marcus kept watch by the window, noting every white tank top that passed below. "Another backup complete," Lena said, rubbing her tired eyes. The room felt smaller each day, but they couldn't risk being separated again. Empty coffee cups littered the desk beside stacks of handwritten notes. Moreau visited daily, always in civilian clothes, bringing fresh croissants and updates. "The pressure's building," she told them that morning. "Rambo's getting nervous. He's ordering random searches of minority neighborhoods to distract from your case." "Classic deflection," Lena muttered, organizing another folder of evidence. She'd labeled everything meticulously. Dates, locations, cross-references. Her historian's training turned trauma into testimony. Marcus paced the room, 7 steps each way. "Any word on Etienne?" "Nothing concrete," Moreau said. "But we're watching the hospitals. And his sister's safe with my cousin in Lyon." The breakthrough came on Wednesday. Camille's feature article dropped like a bomb. "Hate Under the Tower: The Hidden Violence of Les Loups Blancs." The story ran simultaneously in French and English, backed by irrefutable evidence, security footage, bank records, witness statements, social media trails leading straight to Adrian's inner circle. Their hotel phone rang constantly. Other journalists, lawyers, activists. Lena handled the calls while Marcus coordinated with Moreau's trusted officers, building a protection network for their growing list of witnesses. By Friday, public opinion had shifted. Protesters gathered outside police headquarters, demanding investigation into biased arrests. Adrian's nightclub faced sudden tax audits and safety inspections. His Instagram followers dropped by thousands. "We need a break," Marcus said that evening, watching Lena stare at spreadsheets until her eyes crossed. "Just one night, before whatever comes next." She started to protest, but he was right. They were running on fumes and fury. "One night," she agreed. They chose a dinner riverboat, something touristy and bright. The Seine reflected city lights like scattered gems, and the Eiffel Tower played its hourly light show across the water. They had a corner table, backs to the wall. Old habits died hard. "Remember our first date?" Lena asked, swirling her wine. "That little soul food place in Atlanta?" Marcus smiled, his first real smile in days. "You ordered extra hot sauce just to prove you could handle it. And you pretended not to notice me crying into my napkin." They laughed, and for a moment, Paris felt like just another city, just another trip. The boat glided under bridges older than their country, past buildings that had seen centuries of struggle and survival. "Do you think we can forgive them?" Lena asked suddenly. "Not forget. Never forget. But forgive?" Marcus was quiet for a long time, watching the city slide by. "I think," he said carefully, "that forgiveness without justice is just surrender. We fight for what's right first. Forgiveness comes after consequences." "The historian in me knows change takes time," Lena said, "but the woman in me wants it now, wants them to face what they've done, to understand. They will." Marcus covered her hand with his. "Truth has a way of lasting longer than lies." Their waiter brought dessert, classic crème brûlée with 2 spoons. They shared it slowly, savoring the moment of peace. Other diners snapped photos of Notre Dame as they passed, tourists living in a different Paris than the one the Hales had discovered. After dinner, they decided to walk along the riverbank. The night was cool but clear, stars peeking through the city's glow. Street musicians played somewhere nearby, an accordion making the air dance. "Whatever happens," Lena said, "I'm glad we stayed to fight. Running would have felt like letting them win," Marcus finished. He squeezed her hand. "I know." They passed couples on benches, students sketching the nighttime river. All the normal pieces of Paris life. A mother hurried past with 2 sleepy children speaking rapid-fire French. Marcus nodded at her, his situational awareness never fully off, even in this peaceful moment. Lena leaned into his shoulder as they walked. When this is over, let's come back someday. See the Paris we meant to see. The museums, he teased. All those history lectures you planned? Hey, you married a historian. You knew what you signed up for. Their laughter echoed off the stone embankment. They were nearly back to their hotel's neighborhood, where the streets grew narrower and the tourists thinned out. The river looked darker here, the shadows deeper. A few scattered raindrops fell, making circles on the water. Marcus instinctively moved them closer to the buildings, away from the exposed riverbank. Old training. Stay near cover. Somewhere ahead, tires squealed on wet cobblestones. Headlights suddenly blazed around the corner, far too fast for the narrow street. A white van skidded to a stop, blocking their path. The side door slammed open. Dark figures poured out, faces hidden behind familiar masks. The white wolves had returned. The van's headlights turned the rain into blinding sheets. Marcus's muscles tensed as he recognized the white masks emerging from the shadows. 6 men. 8. More spreading out to cut off escape routes. "Behind me," he ordered Lena, but she was already moving. Years of marriage had taught her to read his tone. They backed away slowly, his body angled to shield her. Steel glinted in the streetlights. The first knife came fast and low, aimed at Marcus's gut. He twisted, shoving Lena toward the nearest parked car, but wasn't quite quick enough. The blade sliced through his jacket sleeve, drawing a hot line of pain across his bicep. "Get down!" he shouted, ducking behind the car's hood as another attacker lunged. The knife sparked off metal where his head had been. Marcus grabbed the man's wrist, yanking him forward into a brutal knee strike. The blade clattered to the wet pavement. Lena pressed herself against the car's tire, fumbling for her phone. "Police!" She started to dial, but a boot kicked it from her hand. It skittered under the vehicle. Marcus was pure focused violence now. He caught the next attacker's knife arm, twisted until something popped, and used the man's momentum to flip him onto the van's hood. The impact dented metal. Another wolf charged. Marcus caught him in a headlock, using him as a human shield against 2 more advancing blades. "The bag!" someone shouted in French. "Get the woman's bag!" Rough hands grabbed at Lena's shoulder strap. She held on, knowing what the drives contained, but a punch to her ribs made her gasp and lose her grip. Her laptop bag disappeared into the crowd of masks. "No!" She lunged after it, but Marcus pulled her back as another knife slashed through the space she would have occupied. Slow footsteps approached through the chaos. The masks parted, and Adrian Vauquelin emerged, elegant in a tailored coat that seemed to repel the rain. He held Lena's bag like a trophy. "A historian should know," he said, his accent precise and mocking, "that some stories are better left untold." He reached into the bag, removing her phone and external drives. With theatrical flourish, he smashed the phone against the ground, then dropped the drives and crushed them under his heel. "Say hello to your history, madam." Lena's throat tightened. Weeks of evidence, testimonies, lives laid bare, ground into the wet street. Marcus tensed beside her, calculating odds, but there were too many. They had planned this well. Sirens wailed in the distance. Adrian's smile widened. "Right on schedule." He gestured, and his men melted back into the van. The engine roared to life. "This isn't over," Marcus growled, still protecting Lena with his body. "Oh, but it is," Adrian replied. "Your word against mine. And in this city—" He shrugged elegantly and stepped into the van. It peeled away, leaving rubber streaks on the cobblestones. Police lights painted the scene in strobing blue. Commissaire Rimbaud emerged from the first car, his concern as artificial as his smile. "Madam, Monsieur Hale, are you hurt? This is terrible. Simply Terrible. Capitaine Moreau arrived seconds later, her civilian car screeching to a stop. She took in the scene with sharp eyes, Marcus's bleeding arm, Lena's crushed phone, the tire marks still fresh on the street. "I'll need statements," Moreau began, but Rimbaud cut her off with a raised hand. "Non, Capitaine. This case is now a matter of national security." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We can't have foreign agents disrupting the peace with unfounded accusations." "Foreign agents?" Lena's voice shook with fury. "They attacked us. They destroyed evidence." "Evidence of what, madame?" Rimbaud spread his hands innocently. "I see only a regrettable street crime. Perhaps you should return to America before something worse happens." The truth hit Lena like ice water. She grabbed Marcus's hand, squeezing tight. "He's part of it," she whispered. "He's been part of it all along." Moreau lingered as other officers secured the scene, pretending to take notes. She drifted close enough to murmur, "Then we go off book." Rain continued to fall, washing away blood and tire tracks, but not the rage in Lena's heart or the steel in Marcus's eyes. They had lost this round, but the night wasn't over. The Eiffel Tower's searchlight swept across the clouds above them, marking time like a metronome, counting down to whatever came next. Marcus pressed a handkerchief to his bleeding arm, his face unreadable. But Lena knew that look. It was the same one he'd worn in combat, when retreat meant only gathering strength for the real fight ahead. She squared her shoulders, refusing to show fear as Rimbaud's officers photographed the scene, carefully missing every important detail. The rain grew heavier, drumming on car roofs and washing the street clean of evidence. But some stains, Lena knew, ran too deep for rain to touch. The truth was still out there, in hidden drives and buried files, in witnesses who had found their voices. They just had to find another way to bring it into the light. Rain drummed against the windows of Capitaine Moreau's third-floor apartment, turning the city lights into blurry watercolors. The small living room had become a war room, its coffee table covered with case files stolen from the precinct archives. A hand-drawn map of the riverfront district dominated the center. Marcus sat on the worn leather couch, studying the layout while pressing a fresh bandage to his arm. Lena paced behind him, her reflection ghosting across the dark windows. Moreau stood at her kitchen counter, making strong coffee with mechanical precision. "These files go back 6 months," Moreau said, bringing 3 steaming mugs to the table. "Every time we built a case, evidence disappeared. Footage vanished. Witnesses changed their stories." She tapped a thick folder. "But they made one mistake. They got sloppy with their backups." "What do you mean?" Lena stopped pacing, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. Moreau unfolded her map further, pointing to a block near the Seine. "Le Loup d'Argent, Adrian's main club. Behind it, there's a warehouse. Officially, it's just storage for liquor and sound equipment." She gave a thin smile. "But one of my informants spotted their tech guy making late-night visits, always carrying hard drives. They keep copies," Marcus said, leaning forward. "Insurance against each other. Exactment. Adrian doesn't trust his own people. He records everything. The attacks, the payments, the police collaboration. If someone steps out of line..." She made a cutting motion across her throat. "Like Etienne," Lena whispered, remembering the young gang member's bruised face in that forced video confession. "We need those drives," Marcus said. His voice was quiet, but carried the weight of certainty. "Not just for us now, for everyone they've hurt." Moreau hesitated, then reached into her jacket. She placed her precinct keycard on the map. "This will get you through most security doors in the district. But listen carefully. No guns. Nothing that could void your self-defense claim if this goes wrong. Cameras only." Marcus nodded, already cataloging resources. "We'll need different tools. Simple ones, untraceable. For the next hour, They gathered supplies from around Moreau's apartment and a late-night hardware store. Rope, utility flashlights, basic tools. Marcus paid special attention to 2 fire extinguishers, checking their pressure gauges. "The powder creates confusion," he explained, seeing Lena's questioning look. "Better than smoke in enclosed spaces. Non-lethal, but effective." Lena set up her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm programming a dead man's switch. If we don't return to manually stop it by dawn, everything we know goes public. To journalists, human rights organizations, even Interpol." "Smart," Moreau approved. "But be careful with the timing. Dawn Patrol changes shifts at 5:30. That's your window." Marcus laid out their improvised gear on the coffee table, organizing it with military precision. Zip ties, work gloves, a small medical kit. Everything chosen to subdue without permanent harm. He'd learned long ago that true strength meant knowing when not to use it. "The warehouse has 3 exits," Moreau continued, tracing routes on her map. "Main loading dock faces the river. Side door to the alley. Emergency exit to the club's back lot. Security cameras on all of them. But they're basic systems, more for show than serious surveillance." "Guards?" Marcus asked, testing the strength of a length of rope. "2 regular night watchmen, plus whoever Adrian has watching his insurance policy." She shrugged. "After tonight's attack, he might have more." Lena stopped typing and looked up. "We could wait. Find another way." "No." Marcus's tone was firm but gentle. "They're scared now, making mistakes, and Etienne needs help before they decide to silence him permanently." The rain intensified, rattling against the windows. In the distance, a boat horn echoed off the Seine's dark waters. Moreau gathered the files, securing them in a hidden panel behind her bookshelf. "I'll be in my car near the North Bridge," she said. "Radio silent unless there's an emergency. If you're not out by 5:15, I call in a random drug raid. That should buy you coverage to escape." They packed their supplies into nondescript gym bags. Lena did one final check of her laptop's dead man's switch, then closed it with determination. "All set. All. If anything happens to us, the truth still gets out." The drive to the docks was quiet, broken only by the rhythm of windshield wipers and the occasional police siren in the distance. Paris's nightlife glittered around them, oblivious to the tension in Moreau's unmarked car. The Eiffel Tower's searchlight cut through the rain clouds, briefly illuminating the warehouse's dark bulk ahead. Le Loup d'Argent's neon wolf sign cast a silver glow over wet cobblestones, its eyes seeming to follow their approach. Moreau pulled into a shadowed spot with a clear view of the loading dock. "Remember, in and out. Evidence only. No heroics." Marcus squeezed Lena's hand, feeling the strength in her answering grip. The simple gold of their wedding bands caught the faint light. "No more running," he said quietly. Their eyes met in the rear-view mirror, and Moreau saw what made them dangerous, not anger or vengeance, but the steady flame of justice that no amount of rain could extinguish. The warehouse rose before them like a metal glacier, its corrugated walls sweating in the summer rain. Security lights cast angular shadows across loading bays and dumpsters, while distant music from Le Loup d'Argent throbbed through the walls. Marcus pressed against the wet brick, scanning the perimeter with practiced eyes. Lena stayed close behind him, both gym bags slung across her shoulder. Her heart hammered, but her hands remained steady. Years of research in hostile archives had taught her how to channel fear into focus. Marcus held up 3 fingers, then pointed to a side door partially hidden behind a stack of empty kegs. A security camera hung above it, its red light blinking lazily. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small spray bottle filled with water and black paint. "Wait for my signal," he whispered, his breath visible in the cold rain. Moving like a shadow, Marcus approached the camera's blind spot. One quick spray clouded its lens. He tried Moreau's keycard on the electronic lock. The light flashed green. Inside, the warehouse air hung thick with cigarette smoke and the metallic taste of old rain. Rows of metal shelving stretched into the darkness, stacked with liquor cases and sound equipment. But toward the back, fluorescent lights spilled from an office area. Male voices carried through the space, laughing over the sound of video playback. Marcus recognized the racial slurs from their own attack. "Look at this American pig squeal," someone said in French. More laughter. Marcus touched Lena's arm and pointed to a circuit box on the wall. She nodded, understanding. While he moved toward the voices, she carefully opened the metal panel. The office space came into view. 3 men hunched over monitors, watching footage of hate crimes like sports highlights. Empty beer bottles littered their desks. A 4th man dozed in a corner chair, knife visible in his belt. Marcus counted heartbeats, timing his approach with the thunder outside. The sleeping guard first. One hand over the mouth, other arm around the throat. Pressure on the carotid artery. The man's eyes flew open for 2 seconds, then rolled back as consciousness fled. "Henri?" one of the others called. "You want another beer?" Marcus zip-tied the unconscious guard's hands and moved on. The next man dyed his vape pen. Noticed movement too late. Marcus clamped down on his windpipe before he could shout, dragging him behind a file cabinet. Another zip tie. 2 left. They were engrossed in their screens, sharing a joint. Marcus retrieved a fire extinguisher from his bag. The pin made a tiny click as he pulled it. White powder exploded through the office. The men shouted, choking and confused. Marcus moved through the cloud like a ghost. A quick strike to the solar plexus dropped one. The other swung wildly, missing. Marcus swept his legs and drove an elbow into his diaphragm. "Lena, now!" he called. The lights died. Emergency bulbs cast everything in bloody red. Lena rushed to the computers, plugging in external drives. "Downloading," she said. 2 minutes. Marcus secured the last 2 men with zip ties. "Told you we weren't running anymore," he told their glaring faces. A door slammed somewhere in the warehouse. Footsteps approached. "Well, well." Adrian Vauquelin's voice cut through the haze. "The American tourists got lost again?" He emerged from the powder cloud, rain dripping from his expensive jacket. A knife glinted in his hand. "This time there's no police to hide behind." Marcus pushed Lena behind him. "Keep working," he murmured. To Adrian, "You made this personal." "Personal?" Adrian laughed. "This is business. Paris belongs to us. People like you are just inventory." He lunged, blade slashing. Marcus deflected with his forearm, feeling steel-kissed skin. They crashed into a desk, monitors toppling. Adrian was skilled, clearly trained in some martial art. But Marcus had learned combat in places where rules didn't exist. They grappled in the red light, trading brutal shots. Marcus drove his knee into Adrian's ribs. Adrian retaliated with an elbow that split Marcus's eyebrow. Blood mixed with rain and fire extinguisher powder. "Files at 60%, Lena called. She hadn't stopped working, even as violence exploded around her. Adrian broke free and slashed again, opening a line across Marcus's chest. "I'm going to enjoy editing this footage," he snarled. Marcus caught the next strike and twisted, using Adrian's momentum to slam him into a steel support beam. The knife clattered away. Now it was pure grappling. Marcus's special forces training against Adrian's street fighting. They crashed through office supplies, papers flying. Marcus took another hard shot to the face, but kept his grip. This wasn't about pride or revenge. This was about justice. The fight moved into the rain through a broken window. Adrian tried to slip free, but Marcus had him now. A precise leg sweep, an arm bar, and suddenly Adrian was face down in a puddle, gasping. Marcus wrenched his arms back. "Learn your place," he growled, snapping handcuffs around Adrian's wrists. He dragged the gang leader back inside and secured him to his own desk. "Download complete," Lena announced. Thunder punctuated her words like an exclamation point. Lena's fingers hovered over her phone, rain dripping from her sleeve onto the screen. The livestream app blinked red, waiting. She drew in a deep breath and pressed start. "My name is Dr. Lena Hale," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The camera swept across the office, showing the fallen white wolves zip-tied on the floor, their own propaganda posters looming above them like silent accusations. "What you're about to see is the truth they tried to bury." Marcus stood guard near Adrian, who struggled against the handcuffs binding him to the heavy metal desk. The gang leader's carefully maintained image had crumbled. His designer clothes were soaked and dirty, his face twisted with impotent rage. "For weeks, Les Loups Blancs has terrorized Paris," Lena continued, moving through the space. "They filmed attacks on tourists and minorities, edited the footage to look like self-defense, and used corrupt officials to silence victims." She approached one of the computers, turning the screen toward her phone's camera. "Here's their editing suite. Notice the folders marked by race and nationality." Through the warehouse windows, blue lights began to flash. Capitaine Moreau's reinforcements were arriving. Officers she trusted from the 15th arrondissement, beyond Rimbaud's influence. The cavalry wasn't coming to save them. It was coming to secure their victory. "Watch closely," Lena said to her growing audience. She tapped keys, bringing up side-by-side footage of their own attack. Original video on the left, their edited version on the right. See how they cut the beginning, their knives, their threats. They turned victims into villains with a few mouse clicks. The view count ticker in the corner of her screen began to climb. 1,000, 5,000, 20,000. Adrian spat curses in French. "You think this matters? No one will believe. The metadata doesn't lie," Lena cut him off, her voice sharp as steel. "Every original file, every edit timestamp, every location tag. It's all here, streaming to secure servers across 3 continents." A phone buzzed, Adrian's, sitting on his desk. The screen showed Commissaire Rimbaud's name and photo. Lena picked it up, letting her camera focus on the caller ID. "Good evening, Commissaire," she answered, putting it on speaker. "I'm afraid Mr. Vauclain can't come to the phone right now. He's busy being documented." "Madame Hale." Rimbaud's voice dripped with false concern. "You're making a serious mistake. Breaking and entering, assault, illegal surveillance. No, you made the mistake." Lena's calm cracked slightly, letting righteous anger shine through. "You thought because we were foreign, because we were black, that we'd run away, that we'd accept your official story and disappear." She walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. "But I'm a historian, Commissaire. Do you know what that means? I document things. I connect dots. Like these payment records showing how much Les Loups Blancs donated to certain police retirement funds." The viewer count hit 100,000. Through the windows, Moreau's officers were securing the perimeter. Their badges caught the emergency lights, flashing like stars. "You're finished," Rimbaud growled. "I'll have every what?" Lena turned her phone to show Adrian's face again. "Every piece of evidence disappeared, every witness intimidated, every charge dismissed." She laughed softly. "Look at your screen, Commissaire. Look at how many people are watching right now. You can't edit this away." The sound of boots on metal stairs, Moreau's team entering. They moved with professional precision, documenting everything with their own cameras. No detail would escape. No evidence could vanish. "This isn't just about one attack," Lena told her audience, which had swelled past 250,000. This is about every person they hurt, every life they tried to break, every truth they twisted. And it ends tonight. Phones across Paris lit up with notifications. News channels began picking up the stream. Hashtags trended. The story wasn't just spreading, it was igniting. Marcus touched her shoulder gently. In his eyes, she saw not just love, but pride. They hadn't come to Paris looking for a fight, but when injustice found them, they'd chosen to stand. Adrian slumped in his restraints, his carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. The White Wolves' strength had always been illusion. Camera tricks, edited reality, borrowed power. Under the harsh light of truth, they looked small. To everyone watching, Lena said, her voice growing stronger, if you've been attacked, if you've been silenced, if you've been made to feel like a stranger in this city, come forward. The evidence is secure. The truth is live. And we're done letting them write the story. She panned across the office one final time, letting the world see what happened when hate lost its hiding places. On screens across Paris, in cafes and homes, on phones and tablets, the image blazed like dawn breaking. The viewer count passed 500,000. Moreau entered with her officers, nodding to Lena. No words were needed. The captain's presence said everything. The system might bend toward corruption, but it could also bend toward justice, if enough people refused to look away. Within minutes, the warehouse transformed into a storm of activity. Media vans screeched to a halt outside, their spotlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. Reporters sprinted through puddles, microphones thrust forward like spears, shouting questions in French and English. Capitaine Moreau directed her officers with calm efficiency. Secure the premises. Document everything. She gestured to the computer terminals. Tech team, start imaging those drives. Nothing disappears. The White Wolves sat in a row against the wall, zip-tied and sullen, their white tank tops now grimy and wet. Police photographers captured every angle. Their faces, their tattoos, the propaganda posters above them. No detail would escape the record. Marcus leaned against a filing cabinet, pressing a hand to the slash across his chest. The cut wasn't deep, but blood had soaked through his shirt. A medic tried to approach. He waved her off. Take care of anyone else first. His eyes never left Adrian. Lena's live stream continued to explode. Comments flooded in from across Paris, then Europe, then globally. Victims began sharing their own stories, timestamps and locations matching perfectly with the warehouse's database of attacks. You need to stop that stream, Adrian snarled, still cuffed to the desk. This is illegal surveillance. No, Moreau cut him off, reading from a warrant she'd obtained through trusted channels. This is the execution of a lawful search based on probable cause, and everything we're finding matches victim statements going back months. An officer called out from one of the computers. Capitaine, payment records, encrypted but recoverable. Regular transfers to offshore accounts, linked to... He looked up, face grim. Police pension funds. The warehouse doors burst open. Commissaire Rimbaud stormed in, rainwater dripping from his expensive coat. What is the meaning of this unauthorized? He froze, finally registering the media presence, the cameras, the documenting officers. Jules? Moreau's voice carried across the space. So glad you could join us. This is outside your jurisdiction, he blustered, trying to regain composure. I'm ordering you to... Actually, a new voice interrupted. Everyone turned. The Paris public prosecutor stood in the doorway, flanked by judicial police. Captain Moreau's actions fall precisely within her authority to investigate organized criminal enterprises. He held up his phone, showing the live stream. Particularly when evidence of corruption emerges in real time. Rambo's face went from red to ash white as his name appeared in the scrolling payment logs now flooding social media. That's clearly fabricated. I demand— You demand nothing. The prosecutor nodded to his officers. Commissaire Jules Rambo, you are under arrest for corruption, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit hate crimes. The sight of Rambo being handcuffed sent shockwaves through the warehouse. Several of the younger wolves began to weep, their false bravado crumbling. They were just boys, really, seduced by hatred, and now facing its consequences. Moreau approached Adrian, keys in hand. Stand up slowly. She removed the desk cuff, but kept his hands bound. Adrian Vauclin, you are under arrest for assault, conspiracy, incitement to racial hatred. As she continued listing charges, Marcus moved to Lena's side. She was still broadcasting, her hands steady on the phone. You okay? He asked softly. Better than okay. She squeezed his arm. We're seeing justice happen. Outside, a crowd had gathered despite the rain. Word of the live stream had drawn hundreds to the warehouse district. They pressed against police barriers, holding up phones, witnessing. Officers led the white wolves out in groups. Each emergence drew murmurs from the crowd. These weren't the proud warriors of their propaganda videos. These were wet, frightened young men facing years in prison. Rambo went next, his head bowed. Someone shouted, "Corrupt!" in French. Others took up the cry. Then came Adrian. The once polished nightclub owner, who had turned hatred into social media entertainment, looked nothing like his carefully curated image. His designer clothes were torn and muddy. Blood from his fight with Marcus had dried on his collar. His carefully styled hair hung in his face. The crowd's reaction was immediate and intense. Not violence, something more powerful. They booed. They laughed. They held up their phones, recording his walk of shame. All his staged videos, all his edited victories had led to this. A perp walk in the rain, documented by the very weapons he'd used against others. Remember this moment, Lena narrated to her still-growing audience. Remember that hate only wins when we let it hide, when we look away, when we accept edited versions of truth. The prosecutor approached them, looking impressed. Madame Hale, Monsieur Hale, we'll need formal statements, but I want you to know, this evidence, combined with prior complaints, will support maximum charges. How many victims? Marcus asked quietly. We're still counting. But with these records? The prosecutor gestured to the warehouse. We can prove dozens of attacks, possibly hundreds. More police vehicles arrived. Evidence teams in white coveralls began cataloging everything. The prosecutor's cyber division started downloading server contents. What had been a den of hatred was becoming a crime scene. Every dark corner exposed to light. Moreau joined them, looking tired but satisfied. The commissioner's office is sending a special investigator. Internal Affairs will handle the corruption angle. She managed a small smile. You did it. 3 weeks had passed since the warehouse raid. Paris in autumn light felt different now. Cleaner somehow, as if the exposure of corruption had washed more than reputations. Lena walked through the secure entrance of the witness protection facility, signing forms and surrendering her phone with practiced ease. She'd made this trip several times already. Etienne sat in the small meeting room, his bruises faded to yellow-green shadows. He managed a slight smile when she entered. Dr. Hale. His voice was stronger than last week. You look better, Lena said, taking the chair across from him. She placed a worn paperback on the table. His sister had mentioned he liked mysteries. Something to pass the time. Thanks. He touched the book's spine carefully. The prosecutor came yesterday. Said my testimony is solid. They have the videos, the financial records. He swallowed hard. Everything matches. Lena nodded. You're doing the right thing, Etienne. Your courage matters. Doesn't feel like courage. He stared at his hands. I helped them hurt people, filmed it, laughed about it, and now you're helping bring justice. That's how change happens. One person choosing differently. Outside the facility, Paris moved at its usual pace. Construction crews repaired the facade of Le Loup d'Argent, stripping away the White Wolves' logos. The nightclub would reopen under new management, its profits seized as criminal proceeds. Across town, at police headquarters, Capitaine Moreau stood before a room of journalists. Her reinstatement ceremony had drawn international press. The integrity of law enforcement requires constant vigilance, she said firmly. Not just against crime, but against corruption within our own ranks. She'd been promoted to lead a new anti-discrimination task force. Her first act was to hire Marcus as a training consultant. In a precinct gym that afternoon, Marcus demonstrated proper restraint techniques to a group of officers. His chest wound had healed to a thin red line, barely visible under his shirt. Control without cruelty, he explained in careful French, showing how to disable without damaging. Your goal isn't to hurt, it's to protect yourself and others. The officers paid close attention. The warehouse raid had shaken their department's foundations. Multiple senior officials faced investigation. Everyone wanted to be on the right side of change. At her desk at Le Monde, Camille Delatour put final touches on her follow-up article. The Wolves' Fall had gone viral globally, sparking investigations of similar groups across Europe. Her phone buzzed with another interview request, this time from the BBC. The prosecution's case grew stronger daily. New victims came forward, emboldened by the evidence. Adrian's lawyers looked increasingly desperate as charges mounted. Assault, conspiracy, money laundering, hate crimes. Rimbaud hadn't fared better. Internal Affairs found decades of corruption. Cases buried, evidence lost, bribes laundered through shell companies. His blue wall of silence had crumbled as junior officers rushed to testify. In his protective custody cell, Etienne picked up the mystery novel Lena had brought. My sister, is she still safe? She's thriving, Lena assured him. The scholarship program placed her in a good school. New friends, good grades. She didn't mention the security detail that still watched the girl's apartment. Some precautions would remain necessary. I keep thinking about that night at the warehouse, Etienne said quietly. When they made me record that video saying I lied about them, I thought, this is who I became. Just another coward hurting people. But you chose differently, Lena reminded him. When it mattered most, you chose truth. He nodded slowly. The prosecutor says I'll testify next month. After that, maybe witness relocation. A fresh start. You'll have support. Whatever you need to build a new life. That evening, as sunset painted the sky rose gold, Marcus and Lena sat at a small cafe near the Eiffel Tower. The same spot where everything had begun. But the fear was gone now, replaced by calm certainty. They watched tourists pose for photos, children chase pigeons across the grass. A street performer played guitar, his case open for tips. No one harassed him. No phones recorded mockery. Strange, Marcus mused, how normal it all looks. Lena sipped her wine. Normal is what we make it. Every day. Every choice. A waiter brought their dinner, greeting them warmly in French. He'd seen their faces in the news, but respected their privacy. Just another couple enjoying a Paris evening. The tower's lights began their hourly sparkle, throwing diamond patterns across the plaza. Marcus reached across the table, covering Lena's hand with his own. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their city heal. Near their table, a young mixed-race couple stopped to take selfies. No one bothered them. No masks emerged from shadows. Just Paris being Paris. Beautiful, complex, and finally, a little more just. The morning dawned clear and crisp over Paris. Marcus and Lena walked hand in hand along the Champ de Mars, their footsteps echoing on the ancient stones. The grass sparkled with dew, and the early light caught the tower's iron lattice, making it gleam as if freshly forged. Lena wore a light scarf against the autumn chill, the same deep blue as the morning sky. Marcus moved easier now, his injuries fully healed, though he still unconsciously touched the spot on his chest where the scar remained. "Remember our first morning here?" Lena asked, leaning into his shoulder. "Before everything?" Marcus nodded. "Feels like years ago, not weeks." A young couple approached them hesitantly, speaking in accented English. "Excuse me, are you the ones from the video? The warehouse?" Lena smiled warmly. "Yes, that's us. We wanted to say thank you," the woman said, her eyes bright. "My brother was attacked last year. No one believed him. But after your story," she touched her heart, "now everyone knows the truth." More people began to recognize them as the morning crowds grew. A student from Senegal showed them his acceptance letter to the Sorbonne. "I was afraid to come before. Now I know there are people who will stand up." An elderly Parisian woman pressed Marcus's hand. "My grandson is mixed race. He walks taller now, knowing what you did." They accepted each thanks with grace, deflecting praise toward Moreau, toward Etienne, toward all who had helped expose the truth. But the gratitude kept flowing, from tourists and locals, from people of all colors who had felt the weight of silence lift. Near the carousel, a street artist had painted a mural, the tower rising from broken chains, its lights spelling justice in a dozen languages. Children posed for photos beside it, while their parents explained in whispers what had happened here. "Strange to be part of history," Marcus mused, watching a tour guide point out the spot where they'd first faced the wolves. "Usually, I'm the one keeping to shadows. Sometimes the light finds us," Lena replied. She'd already been contacted by 3 universities about documenting the case. Justice isn't perfect, but it's public. They passed a newspaper kiosk, where headlines announced Rimbaud's upcoming trial. The evidence chain had expanded, revealing decades of coordinated harassment. Other cities were launching investigations, breaking similar rings of corruption. A group of students recognized Lena from her live-stream testimony. One girl, barely older than Etienne's sister, asked shyly for a photo. "You showed us how to fight with truth." Marcus stepped back, letting Lena have her moment. He watched her explain to the students how documentation could become ammunition, how history repeated only when people looked away. Her voice carried the same passion that had first drawn him to her years ago. The tower's morning shadow stretched across the grass like a sundial marking time. Tourists lined up for the elevators, their chatter a mix of languages and laughter. No fear, no tension, just the normal bustle of a city at peace with itself. They found a quiet bench near the fountains. Marcus bought them coffee from a vendor who refused payment. "For the heroes," he insisted in rapid French. "We're not heroes," Lena told him. "We just refused to be victims." Marcus squeezed her hand. "Same thing, sometimes." They watched the sunrise paint the city gold. Each landmark held different memories now. The Seine, where they'd been ambushed, glittered innocently. The warehouse district was just another part of the skyline. Even the precinct where Marcus had been held looked smaller, less threatening. A police patrol passed, nodding respectfully. They recognized Moreau's new trainees, wearing body cameras, walking in pairs, stopping to chat with vendors and families. Small changes, but meaningful ones. The morning grew warmer. Children chased pigeons while their parents spread blankets on the grass. A street musician set up his guitar, playing gentle jazz that floated on the breeze. No one filmed him mockingly. No gang gathered to drive him away. Lena touched the tower's iron base, feeling its steady strength. "Remember what you said that first night? This isn't over?" "Meant it differently then," Marcus admitted. "Was thinking about survival, not change. Sometimes they're the same thing." Above them, the tower caught the full morning light, its fresh paint gleaming. The same structure that had witnessed their darkest moment now stood as testament to their endurance. Its lights would still flicker each evening, but they would shine over a different Paris, one that had faced its shadows and chosen light. Marcus and Lena walked on, their path taking them toward the river. The water caught the tower's reflection, breaking it into countless golden pieces that danced and reformed. Like truth, like justice, fragmented sometimes, but impossible to drown. Each step felt lighter now. The fear had burned away, leaving something stronger. They had come to Paris as tourists and become witnesses instead. The city had tried to break them, but in surviving, they had helped break something worse: the silence that protected cruelty. The tower rose behind them, its iron bones unchanged, but its meaning transformed. It would stand long after their story faded into history, but for now, it bore witness to a simple truth: they were seen. They always will be. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.